So I've been wrong. I will be wrong. I still believe we are going to shock people in the next.
Talk a little as to why you think you've been wrong about Bitcoin.
Well, first of all, I have been wrong. I've said on here that I thought it would double this year. Behind closed doors to other people, I said higher levels that I wouldn't say publicly. So this isn't like a minor wrong. So people realize I've traded, I've traded. I'm still trading, but I traded regularly from 1984 is the first book that I got. All the way until 2013 in terms of sitting in front of a screen every day and trading. Guess what? When you're trading, you're wrong all the time, meaning at least 50% of the time around there, you're wrong. So I've been wrong. I will be wrong. In this sense, it's up for the year, and I bought some when it was down during liberation time. I'm enjoying the fact that it's up, but it hasn't done well. And I wrote the paper because I was on I was having a conversation with Sam Callahan, who I'm sure you've met, and he and I had never met before, but I've liked his research pieces that he's done with Lyn Alden, and I thought they were very, very good. So we were having a conversation, and at the very end, he just made a statement when we were talking about why it hasn't gone up. I gave my thoughts, which I'll give you, and I wrote in the article, but he made the statement that, yeah, I still think people view it as a risk asset. And when he said it, it hit me that why do people think being a risk asset is bad? The only thing you make money on in your lifetime are risk assets. That's the whole point of it. The point of the article was risk assets come and risk assets go. There are plenty of things, like emerging markets are a risk asset, but if you've invested them for the last decade, you haven't made any money. China is a risk asset. It's 10-year consolidation. The only things in the US stock market that have worked have been the Mag 7. So the point of the article was really twofold. One is when you say it's a risk asset, yes, it has the highest correlation based on the work that Lyn and Sam did to global liquidity. Great. But it also is a risk asset in the fact that the way that I think about it, and the reason I said when the Mag 7 is no longer an easy investment for people, that total $15 trillion market cap is going to start to switch into something that is related to the digital economy, which those names are, and Bitcoin, which is, it's a risk asset that's connected to the digital economy in some way, regardless of what people think. And so the point was, if the Mag 7 are no longer deemed a risk asset, meaning they're not outperforming the market, then that's when I think things like Bitcoin will start to find their thing. I will end with one thing here. I do believe that I've said this repeatedly, and I've talked now to enough people. I think you and I have talked about it as well. There's a lot of people from 2022, entrepreneurs who went through a lot of trouble with the government in terms of regulations, and they lost a lot of money in terms of the rise and then the collapse. And even though Bitcoin has gone higher, the rest of the system, if you strip out Bitcoin and Ethereum, it's not good. So I think every time that there's anything, I think there's a rotation that happens. So anyone that has money in Bitcoin, I think it's been a funding thing. I saw this with the .com bubble. I really do believe there's an overhang of people inside the industry that are entrepreneurs, that are innovators, that need to sell to finance other things. I think we're working through that. I still believe there's going to be a violent short squeeze at some point. I've been wrong on that as well, because obviously we've sat here, but I do believe we're going to go higher, because now that the Fed is cutting, and now that we're officially in the game of earnings are good, the economy is going to get better because of all the things that are happening inside the AI action plan, and the Fed is going to be dovish going forward. I can't think of a better situation.
So how do you think about Bitcoin transitioning, like from a holder-based standpoint, but also an attractiveness into a group that just they would actually run away if Bitcoin was going up 300% a year every year?
Yeah, so I have a different take than you, and I'm going to be stubborn in one thing. I still believe we are going to shock people in the short time, since for us to double from 100 or 95 to 200 by the end of the year is very unlikely, at least where it is now and where the implied vol is. So probabilistically, it's not there. I've been through this cycle before of innovation. And what I mean by that, for everyone listening, so Bitcoin moves faster, and technology today moves much faster than it did in the past. What the Mag 7 accomplished from 2007 to today in 15 years, people have to go look.
Breathtaking.
Yeah, I mean, you went from 1 trillion to 15 trillion when you combine all that. This is going to take a lot less time. So Bitcoin's going to get to 15 trillion. It's going to happen. And I believe it's going to happen in much less time. The reason is because of artificial intelligence. So I started doing this because I like to speak a language where AI is in the middle of the traditional finance world and Bitcoin. And I wanted to bridge those two groups together and say, you have to understand that the fuel for moving money from this side to this side is going to take AI. AI will disrupt all investments on this side, which make them less investable, and gradually people will move into Bitcoin.
So AI will disrupt the legacy system.
The legacy system.
And it's going to bring things into this new
more into the digital. It has to be more efficient. It has to be good. I was giving an example to someone. If you understand poker and you're at a poker table, there's I forget the famous line that Doyle Brunson said, but he basically said, if you don't know who the sucker is at the table, you're the sucker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you're not using AI in your business, if you have a lot of people and you're not using AI, which is the way most incumbents are, they're gradually looking to the CTO. The CTOs at every company I've ever seen think they can do anything better than any existing technology. The incumbents are going to get screwed. So they're sitting at the table and they're good poker players today, but they're not using AI the same way that the smaller kids are doing. And when they get at the table, and once everyone at the table has AI and you don't, you are the sucker at the table. That will happen slowly because the adoption takes time. AI agents are coming. They're coming quickly. And as they come quickly, more and more decisions will be made by computers and less by humans. That's what Bitcoin needs. Because Bitcoin, this year, we're talking about it like it's not doing well. It's outperformed the S&P. The only thing it hasn't outperformed this year is gold. That's it. And then some of the foreign markets, but it's outperformed them by a lot. So I think as people kind of get used to this, at some point, just like the Mag 7, this will go parabolic. And I think everything today is happening in about 1/10 the time. So if it took 15 years to go from 1 trillion to 15 trillion with the Mag 7, I'm not saying it's going to happen in 1/10 the time, meaning 1.5 years. But I do believe that people are going to be shocked in this move higher. And the time where this happens is when vol collapses in my history. So Bitcoin saying it's going to double in a year was a very low probability event with the vol at 40. I'm a Black-Scholes guy. That's where I spent my life. The probability of what I was saying was less than 2% at the beginning of the year. I still think this stuff is going to happen.
What's going on with electricity prices, and should we be worried?
This story is not going to die soon. So I'm sure, if not everyone has seen over the course of the last 3 months, usually around June. This is when I heard most people, particularly in Texas, they looked at their electricity bill and, well, what just happened?
For those looking at home, in case we don't pull it up, that's the electricity prices. It's up.
So this is all related to AI. This is only going to get worse. And let's say at the wholesale level. That may be subsidized by the hyperscalers. I'm sure Trump will declare a national emergency. Yeah, if everyone hasn't figured out yet,
that's the go-to move now.
National emergency worked on trade. I think this is the 10th one coming up now with housing. And people are still fighting these. Like, this is not a national emergency. Housing is a national emergency. Electricity is going to be a national emergency, which means we'll find ways to make sure that your electricity bill doesn't go up or it's paid for by the hyperscalers. Someone. Mm-hmm. It won't be the states because they don't have the money necessarily to do it. But I don't want to scare people. But that is a representation of something that people have to pay attention to, because the demand side of power, as I've talked about repeatedly on this, power, we are entering a stage of power needs that is unprecedented. We are seeing it in the earnings of companies at all levels: batteries, storage, boilers, gas turbines, transformers. It doesn't matter what it is. The back orders are just going up dramatically. It's obviously driving GDP. It's keeping us from going into a recession at this point, but it is not going to stop. Now, the one thing I do want to say, and I'll do this on my video this week, because everyone says, well, there has to be an end game. Here's the end game. I wrote a paper this week about efficiency. I'm sick of hearing about efficiency. There will be efficiency. But for all of you people, as I wrote in the article, we went from 2G to LTE. We needed more bandwidth. It didn't stop the software that kept growing. We needed the bandwidth to support the increase in software. We have so many things happening that are going to continue to drive more demand that we don't have the power for. But eventually, sometime 2030, 2029, these recursive learning situations will get there, which means the actual algorithm, the AI, will figure out how to better be more efficient. The AI is the one that has to solve this, not humans. And so it's going to take some time. We're going to need AI agents. We need to go through this whole process. There's a lot of demand side that's coming, but I think people should just become, the news headlines are going to come because they like to put out all the big doom and gloom things. And this thing is already out there. Electricity prices are going to be higher. I just think there'll be a national emergency declared at some point.